Aloha, friends and neighbors. Rollin Frost here. I thought I'd call in one of a good prediction here. Build up my ego a little bit. Here's a 7.2 earthquake shakes Mexico City. Okay, here's what the BBC website had to say about it. Powerful 7.2 shook Mexico in the western state of Guerrero near the seaside resort of Acapulco. The earthquake was felt lots of places. Trees fell, windows were broken. In Acapulco, many tourists were going to breakfast. People turned over chairs in their desperation to get out, trampling people, one guy said. Everybody was having breakfast when it struck. And there was a general panic. And Mexico City was very similar. This thing went on for 30 seconds, folks. That's a long earthquake, and people in Mexico City all had a major panic attack here. The panic is an interesting thing because if you've been following this at all on the show, it's all started, of course, with that new moon on the planet Uranus. Here's my basic workbook, my old ephemeris. And down here there was the new moon on the planet Uranus on March 30th. And I made a note, we had an LA quake and even an 8.2 off Chile. Now, the first show I really got down on this was show 905, and that broadcast on April 3rd and April 4th, and that's what you're about to see. The results here on April 18th go on and on about not just Mexico City. They say here is a 7.5, but in common with all the articles, everything here shakes the capital, sending panicky people into the street. Here's one causing widespread panic. And so this panic, comes from Pluto, eek, a bug, which is part of the thing, and ran up through up the left side of Mexico and was a component to this earthquake, which was kind of between Acapulco and Mexico City. Here's a building in Mexico City. Look at the cracks in that wall. So, the location of the actual quake was more over here. Here's the location of it. And this will make more sense to you when you see what I broadcast on the show. Okay, background, Uranus rules earthquakes. We've been doing that for several years on the show here. And it always goes off a little early, late, but little late, little early, but we have the whole month of April here to play with, because the reasons that these planets become very active is either because they slow down and stop and station in reverse direction in the sky, or when a lunation, a full moon or a new moon hits it. In this case, it's a new moon. So we have this activated all through the month of April, and basically once a week the moon comes around and hits it again, and other planets set it off, and so April is the earthquake month. Now, I tell you that next year, April again will be the earthquake month, and I'm still here. I haven't seen what happens down here yet. You've already seen it, I'm sure, but okay. Dr. Sanjay Gupta said recently about marijuana, we have been terribly and systematically misled for almost 70 years about this herb. Now look, the thing about astrology is just as bad. We've been misled. I'm not sure if it's systematic or not, but I'm here showing you the power of astrology. I'm not here to toot my own horn, okay? So any of you could have done this with an ephemeris and a little computer help with astrocartography. And so this isn't that big a deal, but it sure did work, didn't it? So here's part of show 9:05, broadcast on April 3rd and 4th. The thing about this is that in the middle of April, Pluto slows down and stops, and it's in square to Uranus. And so a lot of the Uranus stuff that happens when it has a square to Pluto, it's holding on to Pluto, which is panic attacks, flight or fight, power and control issues. And so if, for instance, over Mexico City, we had a whole bunch of UFOs, and this sort of thing could happen in April. If you get to the middle of April and 100 UFOs show up over Mexico City, people would tend to panic. Spread this March 30th nasty new moon out on the world and take a look at where the hot spots might be. And right away you see this pile up of stuff here running up through Mexico City and Acapulco and down. I'm a little bit concerned because Mexico City is famous for its earthquakes, of course also for its UFOs. But here's Uranus, you see, on the midheaven, and that's up in the sky. That's one of the reasons I mentioned the UFO incident, is that this particular line runs also through San Antonio area here, but Mexico City, you know, here's the new moon. Pluto is over here, more towards Guadalajara if we have any volcano kinds of stuff going off. It could be more over there. Okay, here's new. Okay, it's taken me several years to figure out this stuff. It's not perfect yet. What was that, last year? I said Hawaii could feel some quakiness, and then it occurred in a hurricane, and then it occurred on both our left side and our right side at the same latitude, Acapulco and China. So sometimes I could be off a little bit, but in this case I was right on. We got our earthquake right on time, and the place was right on time. And even more, what's interesting is it was tinged with the square to Pluto, and it didn't hurt a lot of people. It just caused panic. Eek, a bug! A viewer in Honolulu sent me this. This guy's name is Dutch Sense, and he tracks earthquakes. And here's part of his amazing graphics. And here's what he had to say about April.
See that kind of movement. I have never seen this kind of movement happen, not even before the Japan buildup. 2 8.0s, 7 7.0s, or 6 if you count the one that was upgraded. And let's go ahead and try and count the 6.0s here. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 6.0s in the last 30 days. That's a huge amount of movement. Time we've had, let's see, if you count the one that was upgraded here or downgraded on both sides of the Pacific, we've had 6 7.0s in the last 30 days. And that's just a huge amount of movement. So we've got, 7.2, obvious now. I'm surprised the professionals, the USGS or other professionals, are not issuing appropriate warnings for the United States. We're going to rely on YouTube and the mainstream media to warn us, or are we going to have some professionals that finally step up and acknowledge that this is not normal?
Yeah, we've got some institutions that don't work. Most of our institutions don't work. They're archaic. They all come out of that bunch of people I call the Big Hope generation. They call themselves the greatest generation. MGM movies, World War II, global warming. It's all caused by these guys that are now in their, 80s, and the greatest generation. Our institutions don't work. Yeah, and they can ignore pot for 70 years and persecute people. Look out, maybe they'll start persecuting astrologers soon, if they don't like what we're doing. But they're stuck, and they're hurting us. And this is sad. Anyway, on to the Sky Mare. Let's see what's coming up for you this next week. That reminds me, SkyMirrorAstrology.com, and get your $5 app for your iPhone and just start playing with it. It's a good way to learn it. And at SkyMirrorAstrology.com /TV, you can get all these shows. You can get them through the first one too. You can look at the whole show. You can track all this crazy month of April that we have been tracking and learn from it, I'm sure. Well, what's coming up for you in the next week, huh? I got a chart, and you can immediately see I've exaggerated Mars. Why is that? Well, it's because Mars stops in the sky on May 20th at 9 degrees of Libra. So we got about 20 days as you lead up to May 20th, and about 20 days thereafter it tails down. It's like a normal distribution curve, bell-shaped curve. So what's going to happen? Well, you get more and more Martian. What's Mars? That's Mars' coup. He's originally the cross of matter over the circle of spirit, just the opposite of Venus. And he's supposed to take care of the physical things. So he's Ku, the cutter of canoes, protector of the forest and the trees. You know, the Greeks, said he was the agricultural god, protected the olive groves and the gardens and the herds of sheep from the wolves. And, I see him as the fireman and the guy who fixes your roof and the hero EMTs on the road. And, when he doesn't know what to protect, however, well, he turns into the god of war. And they changed him, this age of Pisces, and put a spear on him here. Some say it's an erect penis, because he's a randy little character. This is Aries, okay? Mars rules Aries. So this is the ram. He butts his head against the other ram. Well, anyway, Mars is come backwards to stop at 9 degrees, and he's going to get really strong. And you're either going to be a hero, or you could get overly angry. Now, if your interior Mars is getting angry, it's because he doesn't know what to protect. His job is to do physical things to protect. Ask yourself what you're protecting. What am I protecting? What am I protecting? What am I protecting? When it gets clear, the anger will go away, the impatience, the irritation, and there'll be a physical thing to do. Just take this and move this, or do that, okay? That's the lesson of Mars, to use him constructively. He is, after all, the lesser malefic. Saturn's the great malefic in old astrology. Mars is the lesser. So sometimes there's blood, sometimes there's fighting. Venus is lined up against him the first part of your week. Venus is here. She's in Aries. She's at 7, so in the next few days she's going to oppose Mars. And Romeo and Juliet will fight a little bit. The other thing that's going on here is that you've got the Sun at 18 Taurus. It opposes Saturn at 20, so in a couple of days, the weekend, your Monday, the Sun opposing Saturn, you're not going to like government, you're not going to like the institutions. So Stokely Carmichael said, it's the institutions. How come the AMA and the FDA and all of these people say sugar, sugar? Nobody ever looked why sugar makes kids antisocial. They never looked at why pot, help prevents cancer. They never looked at, never mind. It's the institutions, huh? Yeah, I'm going to put my finger right on the Big Hope generation. Those guys in MGM, the movie star people, and I don't like them. Anyway, enough of that. Sociology, it's called, huh? So the Sun opposing Saturn, judge not lest you be judged. You're not going to like the guys in the suits and the ties. Mars stopping, increasing anger, maybe some fighting. Also, we have Mercury here squaring Neptune. Neptune's real strong. Since we had that new moon that took us out of the horrid month of April and all of the Uranian earthquake tornado stuff, that new moon was at 9 Taurus, and here it sextiled Neptune. So it brought the priest artist doctor back on board, and a sense of quietness and even joy can result with the right music, huh? And so kind of a nice month for art and music and things, the month of May. And trouble is, here's Mercury, and Mercury is going to blunder into this square with Mars and get confused. And he does that, and basically around the 12th and the 13th of May, the moon sets it off on the 15th. And people will say all sorts of things. There could be all kinds of lies. I keep getting a picture in my mind of the CEOs of the 10 big tobacco companies standing up before Congress in suits and ties saying, tobacco is not addictive. One by one. Jeez. More lies. You watch. On the 15th, the lies will be flying around like crazy. No, sugar's okay. You can eat that white sugar, the bugs won't eat. What's it like day by day? Here we go. We're going to run the moon around the edge of this planetary pattern, and as it makes angles, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, to these other characters, these bodies, these planets, which are really just people, it brings out the mood of the times. And if you're watching the Thursday night show on May 8th, well, you got a pretty good mood. You're trying to Pluto. There's discovery going on. You just learned, the MGM generation. Whoa, devils in disguise, those old people. And here, Chiron, there's a square. I can't get anything done. I don't like the helpers. Maybe all these people who say they're helpers. What? Maybe they're not really helpers. I don't feel sure about it. Thursday night, early Friday morning. And then it kind of changes about breakfast time. There's a nice sextile to Jupiter, and wisdom and teaching and starts off. And then there's a sextile to, a trine to the sun, and we feel like getting things done. Then there's a sextile to Saturn. Good sense reigns all day Friday, May 9th. Get the job done. Good, there's a lot of wisdom. This grounded stuff, okay? It lasts until, well, it goes through Saturday morning. About breakfast time, though, the moon shifts into Libra. And when it goes into Libra, oh boy, everything starts to change. Your blood heats up. You're in the Mars zone. Starts pretty well. If the communication is good, there's a nice trine to Mercury in the middle of Saturday. And then it all starts to go awry. Everything speeds up and heats up. And Mars is going to make trouble for everybody, including Juliet over here, and the sports figures. And lots of times this is when prisoners riot in jails, and young men, that their testosterone levels have shot way up. Okay, so a lot of this stuff comes down on Sundays. Late Saturday night is when the moon goes by Pluto. It's 2 a.m. actually, Sunday morning. And that's when you're going to feel most of the Mars. Even though Mars stops, well, you're going to feel it when he stations around the 20th pretty strong. But here the moon's setting it off, and it'll be all over your world for a little bit. When you wake up Sunday morning, there's going to be sports. There's going to be, I hope it's all heroes. I hope you get up and you fix stuff, and get physical about the world. You ever see a fireman get off a fire engine and get pissed off? No. So you got to be like a good fireman here Sunday morning. Get out and do the work. There'll be obstacles. Electrical stuff won't work. You'll overdo it. There'll be problems with bugs from the square to Pluto. Goes on all the way through Sunday. It's a tough day, an angry day, a day when we hopefully aren't going to be fighting on this world. Instead, we might be fixing some things. The vibes continue a bit through Monday, and then in the afternoon, the moon shifts into Scorpio here, and vibes change totally. Here, Monday night, early Tuesday morning, really. This is 2 a.m. in the morning. Tuesday morning, the 13th, the moon's in Scorpio, trining Neptune. There's music, there's art. Read Jesus. When he says heavens, read sky. The Tuesday continues pretty nicely. There's a sextile to Pluto after lunch. Discoveries going on. There's a trine to Jupiter in the evening after dinner. As you go into the evening, there's a lot of wisdom popping up all over. But look out, don't go expanding out right away, because here's Saturn lying up ahead. Saturn's in Scorpio at 20 degrees going back to 19. Yeah, and that, you're going to hit that like a roadblock Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. What? You mean there's no time? There's no money? There's a law against this? What? What? So this is a difficult time. There's a full moon that it kind of exacerbates. It makes it a little worse. On Wednesday morning, the full moon at 25 Scorpio going to give us all a little sobriety for the month following this full moon. So Wednesday's not a good time. Full moons are accident prone. Saturn is, here we all partying out. It was all so neat on Tuesday, and then bang, bad hangover Wednesday. So word to the wise, huh? Thursday, let's see, the moon goes into Sagittarius right here. And so when you wake up Thursday morning on the 15th, well, you're in Sag, and there's a square to Neptune, and there's confusion, and there's delusion, and you can't communicate. There's an opposition to Mercury, and there's lost kids, and everybody seems to be, they say right and they mean left. Maybe are they really lying? What did Sanjay Gupta mean when he said we have been terribly and systematically misled for nearly 70 years in the United States? And I apologize for my own role in that, he said. About marijuana. Who lied to us? Why are the lies so sticky? Oh, you're just going to be some more confusion here on Thursday morning, but the questions are worth asking. It settles out after dinner. Here's Venus and Uranus, and there's some pleasure and some brotherhood here Thursday. After you're over the confusion and miscommunications of the morning, enjoy your evening. The moon's in Sag. Continues through Friday morning. There is a square to Chiron, so our helpers aren't helping very well early Friday morning. But the moon goes into Capricorn here about 10 o'clock Friday night, the 16th, and everything starts to change again. Gets more scary. We're nearing that part of the Grand Cross again. This is the Pluto side. Eek, a bug. Now it's not set off by a lunation now, so hopefully this won't be, a volcano sprouting all over the world. But you're going into it with music, and everything is fine. Here we've got a nice sextile to Neptune. Saturday morning. Everybody's had a drink or two. It all looks okay. And then the bus crashes and there's a huge fire and everybody dies. Eek! Here's Mars, difficulties. Here's Venus, difficulties with young people all the way through. Uranus, shakiness, all feeling alone. The Jupiter opposition. We overdid it. Too many people, too big a thing. Something expanded. The whole point is, it's a panicky Saturday, and goes into Sunday morning too. Not settling out until you get to noontime Sunday, when there's finally a sextile to Saturn, and we get real about it all. By the time you get to Sunday night late, and the moon's almost finished in Capricorn, there's a trine to the sun. And after all this stuff, you must have learned something, because you're willing to make a plan of some kind here late Sunday. So the Grand Cross is still here. It's moved on a little bit in degree, and Venus has joined the crowd. But the one to watch, Mars. Get pissed off? You get angry? You get impatient? Ask yourself what you're protecting, huh? That's the key to using this guy's power. Okay, first I want to talk ephemeruses. Mine's falling apart. I went looking for a new one on Amazon, and sure enough, Neil Michelson is the guy that did the concise ones. And you can get a 100-year ephemeris, the 20th century, or a 100-year century for the 21st century, about $25. And I would, if you're going to study astrology, it's a must. You can do things with an ephemeris you can't do with a computer yet. Okay, here's a big question. Why am I here? What is my karma? What is my purpose here? Is there a plan for me? Which part do I play on the world stage? All big important questions. Here's a way that you can answer some of them. You have to go back to your date of birth. Okay, here's a month's worth of planets. By progressions, this is not 30 days, this is 30 years. In that time, there are new moons and full moons. The new moons and full moons that happen just before your birth or during your first 90 years, the first couple of months, tell you where the karma is, what your purpose is. An example, Pope Francis was born December 17th. We look here, and what do you see? There's an eclipse, and it's at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, okay? Okay, here's his chart. 22 Sag falls, his north node's at 24. So here's his big purpose, is to be a mothering, nurturing, outflowing of motherly energy. The Pope is almost a representative of the moon more than the sun. Yeah. Let's try some more. Here's John Hinckley, was born May 29th, 1955. And you look to see, and here, a few days after he was born, there was an eclipse at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. The eclipses are a big deal, too. Okay, what's he got here? The closest, it's a numbers game. You're looking at 14. Anything plus or minus either way is important. And the only thing Hinckley's got is Saturn here, opposing Venus. And he tried to kill the president over Jodie Foster and stalked her and stuff. And that's what his purpose was in a way. Woo. Okay, President Obama was born August 4th, 1961. And when you look at any kind of lunation just before or after birth, well, here on the 11th of August was a full solar eclipse at 18 degrees of Leo, 31 minutes. Yeah, it's just a numbers game. What has he got at 18? Well, this is interesting. Nothing except his rising sign. His rising sign is at 18 Aquarius. So that eclipse was over here. And it's the people who oppose him. But for him, it's his appearance. It's the way his body looks. Go after a devil. Famous crazy cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer was born in May 1960. You look for the eclipse before he was born, and here's an eclipse at 7 degrees of Aries, huh? Right on his Mars, young boys, and yuck. Shouldn't have done this one. Come on back next week. More interesting stuff to show you. Aloha.